kiddies. Just your old pal, the Crypt Keeper, having a little holiday fun.
Happy holidays, Vault Dwellers. You know, like many of you back in the 80s, I was rooting for the reindeer each time they saw Grandma coming on Christmas Eve. And today, we're counting down 13 hair-raising holiday horror flicks that made the 80s the greatest decade for seasonal scares. All right, let's give our therapist something to talk about.
And I laughed when I saw him, in spite of myself. He coughed up blood from his little round belly. His brain shook in his skull like a bowl full of jelly.
To start us off, we've got a grandma who starts losing her marbles during Christmas, and not in the fun, mixing up the grandkids' names kind of way. No, I mean, we're talking full on, there's something evil in my house and I'm going to shoot it with my shotgun crazy. Like when one of the kids finds a family cat as a Christmas dinner in the fridge. And trust me, Fluffy isn't doing the eating if you catch my drift. I mean, watching Grandma go from like baking cookies to blasting holes in the walls, it's a kind of holiday chaos that only the 80s could deliver. Listen, we've all had relatives go a bit nutty during the holidays, but this Grandma takes Christmas crazy to just a whole new level of unhinged. So, I live for weird horror, and this movie certainly delivers. I mean, picture this, right? It's Christmas in Wisconsin, right? And a family is being terrorized by a samurai warrior. I've watched this film sober, and let me tell you, it actually makes less sense that way. But here's the thing. I still like the premise. The bizarre supernatural elements, I mean, and that absolutely insane third act, it's like John Carpenter tried to make a film high on fermented cheese curds. I mean, you haven't lived until you've seen a ghostly samurai warrior chase people through a Wisconsin Christmas.
I come not empty-handed, but laden with gifts for you all!
Finally, a movie that asks the question, what if we just kill all the Santas instead? This British film is about as subtle as my high school metal band. The kills, they're pretty creative, and the tension is genuine. And it does make you feel bad from all Santas, which I didn't think was possible. You know, you've got to admire the guts it takes to make a movie where Santa is the victim instead of the villain in a horror movie. Plus, you know, the London Christmas setting, it gives it this grimy urban horror vibe that just works way better than it should. So do you know what happens if you mix Rambo with Home Alone? Well, you get this French thriller which takes the best of both movie genres and just makes it terrifying. Our hero Thomas, he's a genius kid living in a high-tech castle, and he draws the attention of this fake Santa who just got fired from a department store for slapping a kid. I mean, seriously, he's like the worst small Santa ever. And then he just goes full psycho. So our bad Santa shows up at Thomas's castle for a deadly game of hide and seek. And what follows is a cat and mouse chase through this fortress, with Thomas using everything from like security systems to homemade weapons. And the whole thing ends with what might be the most depressing line in a holiday horror history. It's my fault, Mom. I wanted to see Santa Claus. Well, way to ruin Christmas forever, Thomas.
Tickets. Tickets. Let's have your tickets. Tickets. Let's have your tickets.
Don't get excited.
So here's a New Year's horror film that totally understands the true terror of midnight kisses. Our killer, he murders someone in each time zone as the clock strikes 12. And there's this punk rock aesthetic. It's pure 80s, of course, and even though the fashion choices there are sometimes scarier than the kills, but there's this something magical about watching Roz Kelly fight a time zone traveling killer while Shadow's New Year's Eve Evil plays in the background. It's like they wrote the movie just to justify the song, and I'm totally okay with that. E.G. Marshall tells the scariest Christmas story ever about the grither. I wasn't supposed to say that loud. Anyways, so it's a monster who comes when you say its name. Kind of like Beetlejuice, but with more holiday trauma. The mom and dad, they tell their kids about you-know-who and how he will come for you if you say his name. But I'm constantly distracted by how old dad is and how old mom is not. I mean, that's a part too that I actually want to hear about. This next Tales from the Dark Side story is actually based on a Clive Barker story. The episode is what happens when British horror meets American cable. A demon torments a man during Christmas, but our guy Jack, he just keeps calm and carries on, which drives the demon absolutely nuts. It's like Home Alone with supernatural beings. And yes, I know I reference Home Alone a lot, but I was like 15 when it came out, and it speaks to my soul, okay? So the practical effects, they're actually delightfully cheesy, but the story's genius. It comes from its deadpan humor. Plus, anyone who's worked retail during the holidays can totally relate to the demon's increasing frustration.
Hi, Santa.
And here we've got Nazi elves trying to create a master race during Christmas. I've watched this movie at least 12 times, and I'm still not sure I understand it all. So we have Dan Haggerty, Grizzly Adams, right? Plays a mall Santa fighting Nazi elves. If that sentence doesn't sell you on this movie, I don't know what will. The elves look like they're made with like my old Play-Doh set, but somehow that makes them actually creepier. This film it's absolutely bonkers, right? And I love every minute of it, but just don't watch it with your Jewish friends during Hanukkah. Trust me on that one. The OG killer Santa slasher that walked, so Silent Night, Deadly Night could run. We have director David Hess, who, horror fans might remember as Krug from Last House on the Left. He delivers a classic slasher formula. You got prep school, plus Christmas break, plus a killer Santa, which equals teenage casualties everywhere. The kills are interesting, and the twist ending, it's actually pretty clever. Sure, some of the acting is rougher than my aunt's chin hairs, but that's just part of the charm.
Something needs to be done about that fire. Have you got the poker?
Yes.
Well, let me have it.
What did you say?
This is the perfect Christmas horror story. We got a woman who kills her husband on Christmas Eve, only to be stalked by an escaped mental patient in a Santa suit. But talk about karma, right? This episode has everything. It's got ironic justice, perfect pacing, and we got the Crypt Keeper's puns, which there's just so much better than mine. And the tension in this one just keeps building like my credit card did during the holiday shopping season. John Waters calls this his favorite Christmas movie, which, that tells you everything you need to know, right? So Brandon Maggard plays a toy factory worker who just takes the whole Santa is watching thing way too seriously. So the film, it actually takes its premise and plays it as straight as possible, giving us a character study, of a man who's obsessed with Christmas cheer. Also, the ending, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's either brilliant or just ridiculous, and I can't really decide which. Maybe both.
Garbage day! Huh? No!
Alright, look, this film is 40% new footage and 60% flashbacks from the first film. But that 40%, it's pretty golden. Eric Freeman's performance as Ricky, it's so over the top. It creates its own gravitational pull, man. Every line reading, it's iconic. And every facial expression just belongs in the overacting Hall of Fame. I've quoted "Garbage Day" more times than I've said "I love you" to my mom. The film knows exactly what it is, and it just goes for broke. Plus, I mean, who doesn't love a killer who makes Christmas puns while offing people with household items, right?
What's the matter? You don't like Santa Claus?
It's good for business, bad for my stomach. A lot of phony sentiment, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, you knew this was going to be number one, because it's the granddaddy of them all. This film caused more controversy than Christmas dinner political conversations. We had parents who were protesting, critics who were clutching their pearls. We had Siskel and Ebert who just practically had simultaneous aneurysms while reviewing it.
But there's no question in my mind that the showing of Santa with an axe on free TV and commercials is sick and sleazy and mean-spirited.
And you know what? It deserved every bit of attention it got. I mean, the film dares to explore childhood trauma through the lens of slasher horror. It features some of the most memorable kills in 80s horror ever. I mean, that sled scene still shows up in my nightmares, and I mean that as a compliment. I mean, the film's message seems to be don't traumatize your kids with Santa, which my parents, they clearly ignored this since they let me watch it at a super young age. And there you have it, Vault Dwellers, the 13 films that proved the 80s knew how to mix holiday cheer with holiday horror. Drop me a comment below with your favorite holiday horror memories, and remember, sometimes it's just better to leave those presents unopened. Stay radical.